this has been the most challenging time in my life. The most, I've had challenges. I've had shit. I've lost my house. I've been homeless for a short period of time. I've lost all my money. Sexual abuse as a child. And I also, the Me Too movement, I'm certainly a part of that. Yeah. But losing the one thing I wanted in life, like literally, I'm a manifester. I always pretty much get what I want. And to not be able to have the one thing I want is really... I don't know. It's my biggest lesson. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like why the fuck did this happen to me?
Ricki, how's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Pretty well?
Yeah.
What is pretty well?
I guess 1 out of 10 today. I feel maybe I feel like a 7.5, 8.
Okay, that's pretty good, right?
All right, I'll take it.
What's like the status quo for you?
Lately, I mean, it's really, I mean, this year is kind of an unusual year because I'm dealing with a lot. But normally, I'm a real optimistic, pretty happy person. I mean, my husband, who passed, I'm sure we're going to get into that. But he struggled with mental illness. He struggled with depression. And so we would joke, literally, like we would have this joke because I'd wake up, like, I can't wait to see what's going to happen today. Today's going to be such a good day. And he would wake up a lot of times and be like, fuck, I have to live through another day. I mean, that's like, the difference in our personalities a lot of the time. But I'm generally a pretty happy, upbeat person. But this year has kicked my ass.
Well, that's real.
Yeah. Well, when we met, you told me about what you do in this podcast. And I was like, the slogan for my show was Ricki, it's got to be real. It's got to be Ricki. I mean, that was like our catchphrase for a number of years. And, I kind of pride myself on the fact that I have managed to stay really true to myself and authentic and grounded and throughout this crazy career. I mean, I've been in this business for 30 years. My first break was Hairspray when I was 18 years old, and it's this 30-year anniversary is next year. In 1988, it came out.
That is wild.
So, yeah, and John Waters, I credit him for not only giving me my career, but helping me to stay normal through this madness that is Hollywood.
That's amazing, too, because John Waters, like, in terms of his films, are the opposite of normal. Actually, they are so normal, but at the same time, not normal.
It's exactly. I mean, he's such a walking dichotomy. He has been such a mentor and such a gift for me. Yeah. And he actually, I mean, I've told this story before, but when I was, 18 years old, I was so green. I was so naive. I didn't even process the movie was actually going to open. When I made the film, it got me out of going back to college. So for me, I was like, phew, I have a summer job. And
no way.
Even making the movie, I didn't really process, like, I'm the star of this movie. Like, it just was like, I was just going to summer camp every day. And after we finished the film, and I remember I made $20,000, which was more money than I ever imagined making, which was scale plus 10 from SAG,
Holy moly.
And he pulled me aside and he sat me down and he's like, I want to have a conversation with you. And I remember it really well. I mean, I've taken a lot of Ambien in my day, so my memory has not really stayed with me. But this particular memory has really stuck with me. He sat me down. He's like, I want to let you know that your life is about to change. And I want you to remember these 3 things. Always stay true to yourself. Always stay humble. And if you're going to read and believe the good things people write about you, you're going to have to read and believe the bad. I mean, I almost remember it verbatim, I think. And
wow, read and believe the bad?
He's like, it's like basically don't take any of it too seriously. Okay. And, like press and reviews and all the, all the things that, and now to, think, he was ahead of his time to think what existed back then and what it's like now with social media. And, I mean, you really can't pay too much attention to that stuff, But yeah, it was incredible advice for me as a young woman embarking on this crazy ride. And I am pretty authentic. I mean, what you see is what you get.
You've been in so many of John Waters' films, and for anyone who hasn't seen, Hairspray or some of the more risque films that John has made, I mean, there's some that are like super out there.
I wasn't really in the risque ones. I was post those, Pink Flamingos and Polyester.
Polyester, yeah.
But I was in, Hairspray was my first, then Cry Baby, which was I played Johnny Depp's sister. I did Serial Mom. I played Kathleen Turner's daughter. Yeah. She wanted to have me fired on that film, which was really, really funny because I was 24 when I did that film. I was playing like a 17-year-old girl, which was totally believable. But to her, I never actually heard the story from her, but I think she didn't like me because she thought I was too old to play her daughter. And, little did she know that, like, I was John Waters' muse. I mean, I was like, his baby.
Yeah.
I wasn't going anywhere, But yeah, she was an interesting person to work with, and Sam Waterston, and Patty Hearst. I mean, it's just what an amazing kind of introduction to making movies,
Totally. So John Waters, it's dark sense of comedy. Is that the type of comedy that really resonates with you? I'm curious to know what really makes
as like a fan, as something. I like all kinds of things.
What do you find to be the funniest kind of stuff out there?
Oh my gosh, I love Christopher Guest. I mean, his movies, great. I can watch them over and over again. Yeah. I don't know. I love to laugh. I love the Step Brothers and Jim Carrey movie. I mean, I like it all. I mean, I'm a pretty easy audience.
So I read on the internet that the movie Annie is what inspired you to get into acting and sing. Not the movie, the play?
The musical theater, the Broadway show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, the movie is terrible compared to the original.
Really?
Yeah, I saw the original cast of Annie. Now, this is like when you were born, probably in 1978. Is that when you were born?
82.
Oh my God, it's before you were born. Oh my gosh. I saw it in like 1970. It was like around in the 70s, in the late 70s. I was like 7 years old. It was one of the first. My grandmother used to take me to all the Broadway musicals. And I saw it, and I saw girls that were around my age, a little bit older than me, doing what I wanted to do. And it was life-changing. I mean, it was just like I immediately was like, I need to do that. And of course, my mother at the time told me I wasn't the starving orphan type because I was a chubby girl. So she kind of tried to squash my dreams. But yeah, that was the turning point for me in discovering what I wanted to do. And it wasn't about what I did. I wanted all eyes on me. Like, I wanted to be a performer. I wanted to win over an audience. I loved singing and dancing. I didn't know I'd be a talk show host. I didn't know I'd have, the career I had. But yeah, I really love the idea of being a star, whatever that meant at that time,
What's interesting is I think that most kids probably have that same dream. Maybe it wasn't from the stage production of Annie, but from something else where they were really inspired and were like, that's the life that I want to live. But such few people actually become movie stars. So
particularly fat girls. Yeah.
So what do you think was different about you or your approach that got you that break?
Well, with Hairspray, I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I really did embody that character. It wasn't like playing a part. It was basically putting me in these clothes and the funny hair, and basically me being me as Tracy Turnblad. So I just think it was like the most perfect kind of alignment, But as far as like a kid, like I was very sort of likable, I was non-threatening. I was a little bit, charming. There was something I had like a spark about me, and a belief in myself that I think came from my grandmother, the one who brought me to see all the Broadway musicals. I mean, she was the one who instilled in me that I was the best, I was the most talented, I was the cute, all of it. She just boosted my self-esteem, and she died when I was 9 years old, which was such a travesty. But like, she really did leave her mark with me, and I had a belief in myself that just stuck with me, and I think it really did. Maybe you're born with it. I mean, I don't know, because I think my sister and I are very, very different people. We come from the same parents and yet same upbringing, and we have very different kind of ways of thinking. I think part of it is I was born with this innate kind of belief in myself, but I think she definitely helped to instill that I could do anything I set my mind to.
That's amazing that you had such an incredible role model, and also devastating that you lost her when you were 9.
Yes.
You've worn so many different hats in your career and in your personal life, from being in movies to having a talk show to being a documentarian to being a mom.
Want to know my playa name?
Yes.
Never boring.
I'll say.
And I gave it to myself, actually. Yeah, because my life has had such incredible twists and turns. Yeah. Incredible highs and the lowest of lows. I've done it all.
Yeah, talk about contrast. Like, you really experienced it all. I was curious, when do you feel most alive?
Wow, that's a really good question. That's I mean, I go back to my birth experiences. I mean, that was you know, particularly my second birth, which I've talked about. I made a movie about birth, but you know, being in control of my body and my choices, and to see what my body could do, the miracle of carrying a child, nurturing a child, giving birth to a child on my own terms. I mean, that was a day of feeling pretty alive, you know, and empowered. I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, I just am walking the walk. I mean, I don't know. There's days where it's just like, I mean, I do feel like, you know, I'm I don't know. I'm not answering your question very well, but that would be probably the day I felt the most alive was having my baby, I think, at home in my bathtub.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like I could do anything after that experience.
It's like one of life's real moments. It's not like any other day.
No, oh my God, no. I mean, and I think it can be empowering for anyone. You know, you can have that kind of experience in any environment, but I think, you know, for a woman to be informed and to be educated about the options that are available to her, and for her to be respected and her choices to be respected. I mean, I think it can be not only life-changing as becoming a mother, but also tapping into your power. You know?
You've been a trailblazer throughout your entire career. You know, that, as you mentioned, overweight, star of a movie. You were the youngest talk show host, I believe, at age 24.
Yep.
When your show premiered in, was it
did do your
94?
homework. It premiered in 93.
93.
September 13th,
Okay.
1993.
It was on for 11 years.
It was on for 11 years, and I ended
wild.
the show. I mean, I finished my contract. I didn't go back. Yeah.
You touched so many people's lives, and so many people, you know, tuned in and watched you.
Did you watch it growing up?
I did.
You did?
Yeah, this is actually really exciting for me to meet you and to interview you, because, I mean, you were just a legend. Like, of course I knew who you were. Everybody did. And I'm curious, like, when taking a look at the show, like, you had all sorts of moments, I'm sure, from like very touching moments to like super duper outrageous moments. So I was wondering if there's maybe one of each that comes to mind.
Let me think. I mean, that people always ask me that, and it's really a blur because I did 2,100 hours of that show. So what I loved about it, I had a natural curiosity, you know, and I was a good listener, and I was really like, again, non-threatening, very relatable to people. Every day I did the show, and it was very formulaic for me, the way in which we produced the show. It was something like, you know, it's not an easy thing to teach, you know, to be a talk show host, because many people have tried to do it and they fail. I mean, when I was on the air, it was something like over 100 shows came and went. They were trying to sort of copy what we were doing. But like there was a formula to it. Like we'd have the most dynamic story, couple, whatever, in the segment one. Then we'd change it up and have a black story or a white story or a Hispanic story. Like we always wanted to change it up with diversity. But, you know, I had this knack to be able to tie it up in a bow, like get them to fight over what they're fighting about, then have the surprise guest come out, ding dong, bring them out. You know, there was this formula. But every day I would do the show and something would surprise me. There would be something that would, like, you know, someone would say something outrageous, something would happen that would just keep me on my toes, where it wouldn't become too, you know, sort of repetitive for me. But as far as like the most memorable, I mean, my first season, I was 24 years old. I remember having this guy named Fred Phelps on. Do you know? He's since died. He was Reverend Fred Phelps. He was the head of that church that would go and picket at funerals of AIDS patients. And I mean, he was the most, I mean, it was just so awful. And I was, you know, so green at doing my show. We had this guy on, and I remember like really feeling like, why are we even giving this guy airtime? You know, he's just so reprehensible. And he told me on the show, and I'll never forget, he said, I worship my rectum. And I was like, excuse me? And I'm brand new. The show is brand new, and the show is a huge hit. It was getting all this attention. I was like, what? You know? And he's shouting these proverbs at me. He's, you know, he's a Bible, you know, thumper. And I don't know any of that stuff. And I was just like, And I didn't know what to do. And I was looking over at my producers, and I was like, you may be a reverend, but this is still my show. Get out. And I threw him off the stage, and I had him escorted off. And it was just one of those moments where I was terrified, because here I was in this position of power, and I was very much a kid. I didn't really have a sense of who I was. I didn't have a sense of what I believed in. I mean, it was really, you know, in some ways I had very little business of like getting up and having this kind of platform, you know. So that was one that really stands out, and it it was the first time I was disrespected on my show, because I was really truly in every episode I was respected. Why, I don't know, but people would listen to me. They would, but that was a real like shocker for me. That was like, it scared me to my core of like, someone like that. As far as other, I mean, it would never cease to amaze me what people would say and do on national television. Like, and our stuff was real. Your thing is real. Our show was real. We did not have actors. We did not, we certainly want to bring out the most dynamic parts of stories, but it was real stuff, but to see where television has gone, reality television. I mean, our show, Andy Cohen's a very good friend of mine. I've known him for more than 20 years. And he says, his show is a completely derivative from the Ricki Lake show. I'm so glad I don't do it anymore. I am so glad. I have so much gratitude for the opportunities that have been given to me, but 9/11 was really the turning point for me in my learning about myself, and what I want to do with my days here. I think you probably read about it, but I'll tell you, I witnessed 9/11 from my apartment in downtown New York. So I watched the plane firsthand fly down the Hudson and hit the building, the second plane. And I just had my son. I had my home birth, this profound, life-changing, tapping into my goddess in this apartment, in this sacred space. And 2 months later, thought it was the end of the world. It was like the extremes of that. And everyone suffered on that day, and everyone had their own experience. But for me, I really did have like an epiphany. I mean, my husband at the time, my first husband, and my 4-year-old, we went to the roof of our building when the first plane hit, and he had the camera and he was taking pictures of, the tower on fire. And I said, there's another plane. Oh my God, there's another plane. There's another plane. What's he doing? What's he doing? What's he doing? Oh my God. Ah! And my husband got all of it on his camera. And I thought I was going to die. I mean, I remember feeling super pissed that I'm going to die with this man comforting me. I mean, I was very unhappy in the marriage, and I was just, that was this overwhelming feeling. It's like, oh my God, this is how it's going to end. And I was screaming, and it was so like traumatizing. And then I said to myself, I live through this day, I'm going to make, I'm leaving New York, I'm leaving my job, and I'm leaving my husband. I mean, it was like clear as day.
Wow.
Yeah. And I, had to go back to work. I remember 2 days after, the National Guard had moved into my neighborhood. I mean, I lost friends. I lost someone that worked for me, a firefighter. I lost my son's best friend's father was killed, and I'm going back to work, and I'm doing like hoochie mama makeovers with my baby daddy who've been treating me like, I'm like, this is what I'm doing for a living, and this is what I'm putting out in the world, and what the fuck, And so it was during that time that I made these big life-changing decisions. And I also really soul searched on where I can make an impact, where can I make a difference? Where am I needed? And AIDS research and cancer, all these things, but it's like they have all these foundations, like what's not being tapped into. And I really looked at my birth experience and midwives, and that was where I thought, okay, I can do something here, because I was so impacted by my beautiful birth experience at home. And not that I was necessarily promoting home birth, which I think in the beginning I was, because I was so pro home birth, but it really was about choice. It's about informed choice. And that women need to know that they are being robbed of the opportunity to be empowered during this experience, this once in a lifetime or twice in a lifetime experience, by this technocratic society that really, you think they're looking out for your best interests, and in some cases they are, but in a lot of times they're doing it for their own profiting and benefit and protection from lawsuits and whatever the case may be. So that was where I really I think found myself, started to really discover who I am and what I'm about and what matters to me.
Wow, it seems like that's like an ongoing trend in your life, that through adversity you find purpose and
reinvention. Like I really get off on reinventing myself.
Me too.
I love it. I love, like when I came out with this documentary, which was it's now 10 years. We premiered at Tribeca Film Festival, and and I also lost a lot of weight, so I got really like I was like 125 pounds. I was looking like the hottest I'd ever been, and and I went away for a while. I purposely stayed away for a while and came back in a big way. And it just, I don't know. It's like I have this vision of what I want for it to be, and it surpassed what my expectation was. So in the case of this, movie premiering at Tribeca Festival and me showing up, and I got 3 cover offers that day to be on the cover of, it was People, it was Us Weekly, and it was, because I had lost all this weight and I had this movie. So it just, I don't know. It's like I've been so fortuitous in this business where I have an idea and I think, this is interesting to me. Mm-hmm. I never saw it through like the business of being born, my film. I never thought it would have the impact that it had. And it's really changed the birth industry in this country. And I wish I could say I premeditated that. I didn't. I just did it because it interests me,
Thank you for that. My friend Nicole DeBoe, shout out Nicole, because I know you're listening to this. When I mentioned that I was having you on the show, she's like, oh, Ricki changed my life with the business of being born.
Awesome.
So that's incredible that you're standing for what you believe in and making a difference in other people's lives.
Thank you.
And I didn't even realize what was going on in the birthing industry, that hospitals, they want to get you in and out of there, and they also they're a business and want to make money. So C-sections allow them to make more money, I would imagine, than just a natural birth.
Mm-hmm. They can do many more of them in a day, unless, as opposst to letting a woman labor on her own.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, but it is changing. There are, because we just did a little mini reunion from the 10-year people that were in the film. And we have this anthropologist that I love, and she was so inspiring to me. Her name is Robbie Davis Floyd. She wrote a book that I loved called Birth as an American Rite of Passage. And so I saw her recently in Austin, Texas. We did a big screening. And she told us that the home birth rate in the United States has doubled because of our film. Wow. So it's still really low. It's still tiny, but it is doubled. And even a bigger statistic, she said this is huge. The C-section rate has flatlined for the first time in more than 20 years. Every year it has gone up, the C-section rate in this country. And for the since our film came out, it has stayed the same at, I believe, 32%. I'm not exactly sure. It has not gone up. And she said, had you asked her 10 years ago, she would have thought the C-section rate would have been 50% right now. So, yeah, it really has done a lot for that world. And I think, outcomes are still kind of messed up in this country. The maternal death rate is way, way higher than it should be, particularly with minorities. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but there has been some major improvements made.
Absolutely incredible.
It's so cool considering I didn't finish college and I'm not a doctor and I'm not I'm just curious. I'm curious and I give a shit, And so it's a good example of me using my sort of persona or my name to do something that I think matters,
right.
And it's just nice when it does seem to matter to other people too.
Yeah. When we met on the Gratitude Bus, you said that was the most profound work that you've done out of everything that you've done in your career. So
hands down.
That says so much because you've done so much.
I felt like I could die after that. Like I felt like I had done, really? Honestly, not that I wanted to die, but I really truly felt like, okay, my work, right. Like if this is all I contribute to the world, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And I'm now at the point where I think there is more for me. There is more, particularly with the loss of my husband and what I've gone through in this last year and what I've learned about mental health and so I do think that I am needed in that realm, in that arena as well. I don't know what I have to say. I'm actually speaking. I'm a keynote speaker at a mental health something, or I don't know what, a foundation. I agreed to do that, and it's going to be basically the 1-year anniversary of my husband's death, and I kind of took the opportunity to kind of challenge myself, I'm hoping it's going to be a cathartic experience, but I'm not even sure what I'm going to say. But
that's so you.
I know.
And that's the best, right?
I usually land on my feet.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah. Right before this interview, I said, well, here are the topics that I wanted to talk to you about. And you're like, nope, don't even tell me.
Yeah, I don't want to know.
And it seems like that's an ongoing trend, is that you trust yourself and you trust yourself in the moment. Mm-hmm. You're not like putting yourself in far into the future. You're living.
I'm trying. Yeah, Christian, my husband, who had such an impact on me. Like, he was is my greatest teacher. but he was always wanting me to stay in the moment, to be in the present, to put down he's like, babe, put down the Apple product, put down the technology, live in the moment. And for me, I'm glad I didn't listen to him a lot of the time because I have so much of our relationship documented. I'm so grateful I have that. But he was all about kind of, being present, so I think it's a balance. But yeah, I do try to live very much, with my feet on the ground and in the now.
What advice would you have for someone? Because I think there's a lot of people that they fast forward to the end of their life, or at the end of their life, they haven't done so many things that they wanted to do in their life. And it seems like you've lived 10, maybe 20 lifetimes in your young years. So I'm curious to know, what advice would you give to somebody else?
I mean, I hate being in a position of giving advice.
I know, that's why I asked you.
I haven't figured it out.
I read about that. Like you don't love the idea.
I don't like
of
being a role model. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't. I mean,
let's hear about that.
Well, I can acknowledge, I think I'm a badass. I really like myself.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I really do like who I am, and more and more. And particularly since my husband died, my husband was the person I looked up to the most. I mean, he was my favorite person in the world, and I know the coolest people. He was the best, and the way he loved me, I think, is the way I see myself now, and
wow.
I don't know what advice. I mean, I just think it's that's such a hard question for me to answer, but I think we gotta kind of not listen to what people say about it. It's really kind of tapping into what we want, who we are, not listening to the noise,
Amen.
I really am working really hard at kind of staying true to myself, and this has been the most challenging time in my life. The most, I've had challenges. I've had shit. I've lost my house. I've been homeless for a short period of time. I've lost all my money. Sexual abuse as a child. And I also, the Me Too movement, I'm certainly a part of that. Yeah. But losing the one thing I wanted in life, literally, I'm a manifester. I always pretty much get what I want. And to not be able to have the one thing I want is really, I don't know. It's my biggest lesson. I'm still trying to figure it out. Why the fuck did this happen to me? Why did this person who I chose? And if I had a very tumultuous divorce with my first husband, a very difficult, went to trial. We had a full trial. Wow. So it was as bad as, without there being violence or physical thing, and we're now friends, by the way. Ayahuasca, that miracle plants, healed my relationship, helped to heal my relationship with my first husband. And, Christian, I can thank my husband for that, Christian for that as well. But, I never would have, anyone who knew me through my divorce would say she would never get married again. So for me to marry again, this guy was special, So I forgot what your question was.
No, that was great. We were talking about role models, and
I'm not a role model. I don't think I'm a role model. I think I'm, I'm just trying to please myself,
Yeah.
And to be true to myself and to be good to my friends. I mean, I'm a really loyal person.
Yeah.
I have a really good time. I have a really good time. When I met Christian, I was like, just so you know, I'm a really good time, and I am, so.
I want to press into the thing about role models, because something that I read online I thought was really interesting is you said that part of the reason why you don't like to see yourself as a role model is when you look at other people who've already accomplished what you want, that doesn't inspire you.
Did I say that?
It was something like that. That's the way that I read about it. But I was just curious to lean further into that question.
About being a role model, about who I look up to as a role model. I don't know. I mean, to me, a role model to me is when I was a little girl and seeing Annie on stage. That was the role model to me. It was like a dream. It's seeing myself in some other person. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. It makes me uncomfortable because I feel like we are all human. I am so far from perfect. I make mistakes. I contradict myself. So it's I don't want to be held on this that I'm bound to fall off of, It just feels almost like too much pressure. but I can recognize it, like doing Hairspray and playing that character and having that character live on through generations and different incarnations. Like that was me. Like I take pride in the fact that like I was able, for these little chubby girls that feel like outcasts and underdogs, the fact that they have a role model that they can look up to. I love that was me. But you know, it's like part of me can embrace it and part of me feels uncomfortable at the same time. Does that make sense?
Totally does. And you know, it's that paradox, the contrast of life, like the duality, the polarity of life, that's just like we all experience, even though it doesn't show up that way on social media for most of us. But you know, I'm curious in terms of like the personal struggles. You've been through a lot of adversity, and then we all are yearning for something better. Just as human beings, we are always looking for that next dopamine hit. We're always wanting more. So when you do find yourself in the midst of a personal struggle, I'm just curious to know, like, how have you been able to shift your momentum in order to, you know, whether it's like finding a new vision for yourself, your next project, or shifting out of those dark days of personal struggle?
Well, I mean, this with Christian's death, literally getting my dog to the beach every day was like healing. Getting to the gym every morning, you know, and just forcing myself, like literally forcing one foot in front of the other. It was so hard for me, especially in the beginning, forcing myself to smile at the sun and be grateful. You know, it was like just these like mantras in my head. It was like life and death. I mean, it felt like life and death, you know? I mean, not that I was ever suicidal. I mean, there were days I did not want to continue, but I'm not a suicidal person. I'm not a depressed person. I've never suffered from that. So I lived with someone who suffered with that, but but this is the closest thing to it, you know, of just like total despair. I mean, there were months of complete despair. I mean, I did have a train of thought about what you asked about how to get through adversity, right? It's like, I lost my train of thought.
It's all good. You're super real. You said it was the tagline for your show. I'm curious.
Gotta be real.
I'm just curious to know, like, your take on the world today in terms of realness and where we're at.
I think I am the rare breed in this town. I think there's so much, you know, just bullshit and fakeness and inauthenticity and just, it's part of what really turns me off about, you know, I mean, I'm just, and you can't really say what you think. Like, that's part of why I'm really glad I don't have that platform anymore, like that talk show anymore. We're so divisive. We're so full of fear. We're idiots. I mean, so much of us are not educated and you know, the racism and the sexism and I mean, it's so ugly right now. And so I'm really glad, like particularly now going through my loss, like that I don't have to show up and go to work and be like,
have to fake it,
to be a public person, to be, I can do whatever the fuck I want right now. I can, you know, and this year it's been about going to festivals and healing. I have been going, you know, I'll tell you, psychedelics have really helped me with my, and I was someone who was completely against all of that. Like, I've had a huge turnaround, you know, with plant medicine. I'm making a movie. I just finished a film about cannabis, and you know, the older I get, the more open I am, the more just the more crunchy and granola I am. I mean, I'm such a bohemian, and I'm such like a, you know, I just got back from Esalen, for God's sakes.
Nice.
I have
henna. You got the little henna tattoo.
I mean,
it's beautiful.
You know, it's so funny, but the older I get, I think the cooler I get, you know, and so yeah. To answer your question, I mean, there's certain things. There's certain, you know, I go to a lot of healing things and women's circles. That's and cool. Like all this stuff to kind of make myself feel better.
Yeah, and
you know?
You said you feel like you're cooler than you've ever been. Is that due to the openness?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I am finding myself, my true self, through my greatest loss. Like, really, this year I've been cracked wide open. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to be like in a relationship. Like, I know what I was like in that relationship, and a lot of it was very codependent. I think there's patterns I'm going to break this next time around if I'm lucky enough to find love, which I will, because I I'm pretty lovable, but I think I want to. I'm not signing up to be a caretaker ever again.
It's so challenging. Sometimes we don't choose that, though.
I'm done with that. Yeah, I know, but I have a pattern of, and I think a part of it is, I'm a control freak. I mean, there's a lot of things. I've done a lot of therapy, but I'm no longer in the market for someone who needs to be fixed. I'm not a fixer, and I certainly couldn't fix him.
It's an impossible task to take on, but you clearly have a big, loving heart.
Yeah, I do. That's what Christian said. He always said, what's that?
That's my coffee machine.
Oh,
yeah, nice. I'll turn it off in a second. I wanted to ask you a question. You've been in this really interesting position where you've been, a global star, recognizable star, your own TV show, the star of a movie. And to me, that's a really extreme example of, I think, of what a lot of people experience in their life in terms of, the great highs. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious to know about your ego in those moments, like when you're starring in a movie and the story you're telling yourself, when you're on top versus the story that you're telling yourself when you're going through a lot of adversity.
I mean, I think I don't take it very seriously. And maybe that goes back to the John Waters thing. It feels like I'm living a movie a lot of the times, know? And I'm sort of, anyone who knows me, and particularly my friend Robin Roseanne, she's known me 30 years. So I've been around for 30 years. I'm sort of the unfamous, famous person. She said I'm lacking the gene that a lot of her friends have, which they're I'm not going to name their names, but they're friends of mine too, peripherally. But they have this weird kind of aloofness to them. And they're a little paranoid. They're, distrustful. I don't have that gene. I forget I'm famous a lot of the times, and more time has gone on. No, I don't get recognized that much anymore. And when I do, I hope it's because of the business being born. That's what I always like the most.
But, I think people just feel like they know you.
Yeah, they're always we went to school together or something. But I don't know. I don't think my ego has gotten. I mean, I think I take it all with a grain of salt. Awesome. I'm so grateful I've had the career I've had, and I've done the coolest things. I freaking won an Emmy for my show, that was because I went back into the talk show again. I did the show for 11 years, and I went back 5 years ago and signed back up to do it again, and it was a disaster. It was literally a disaster because I consciously came back on the air with thinking I now have a real point of view. I think I was in my early 40s, and I went and signed up with a company that I thought shared my vision. So I really, I was like, okay, and it was a very big deal for me to sign back up for this. I did it for 11 years. I thought I was done. After the business being born and the impact it made, I thought, okay, you know what? I think I am ready for this platform again. And I wanted to do something, I was very clear, I wanted to do something more along the lines of Phil Donahue, which maybe you're too young for, but Phil Donahue had a show.
Oh yeah, I know. When
I went on the air. Yeah. And he, very thought-provoking, elevated content. It was about something. And so that was the prototype, was me doing more that kind of show, a smarter kind of show. Yeah. Well, they didn't want to do that. They suddenly ordered, and granted, I was distracted because I was madly in love. So I was not giving maybe the time that I should have given as a producer of this, creator of the show. So that's my part in it. But suddenly I came back from my honeymoon, and they're wanting to do is your dog smarter than you? We're going to find out in this. And I'm
Mama's pretty smart. She's taking a nap right now over here.
She is smarter than me. But it was just oh my God, this is not what I want. And then I'm suddenly having to do endorsements. I'm having to hold a product up. The segment of this show is brought to you by this curling iron. And I'm this is not what I want, And I it wasn't about money. It was I really wanted to do something that was going to have an impact in a good way. So anyway, it was a total fiasco. The show, I was praying for it to be canceled. I was praying, and it got canceled, which I was so happy. I wasn't happy for the people that were out of work,
right?
But for me personally and my name value, and then I got nominated for the Emmy. So then that happened. I was what? Because I was the show that was canceled, and it was me, Anderson Cooper, Steve Harvey, Dr. Oz, and a couple other people. Okay, and Steve Harvey was the darling of the hit show of the year. I was planning my vacation to Ibiza. I go to Ibiza every year. That's my place. That's my favorite place. My husband and I, it's our favorite place. So they're like, you got nominated. It's televised. You have to cancel your vacation. I'm like, no, I'm not canceling my vacation. I'm not going to win. I went to Ibiza. I was, in bed at 4 a.m. and my phone starts blowing up. And they're like, my husband answers the phone. He's like, you won. And I didn't even know what he was talking. I was like, won what? What did I win? You won the Emmy. You won the Emmy. So it was just one of those things. Like, it was like my life. It's my life, It's like I go and do the show. It was a huge disappointment. I was so devastated. I move on. I go on my vacation as planned, and I win the award for my work. The show didn't win. I won as best talk show host, and it was hilarious. So what's my point? My point is, and I still didn't like let it go to my head. It was just we were laughing our asses off.
Yeah. Do you ever get starstruck?
Yes.
You do?
It's few and far between now. I used to get extremely, I was obsessed with, my 21st birthday, I had as many celebrities come to my party as possible, and I had a karaoke party. It was, I had all the Brady Bunch people. I had, the cast of China Beach and Marley Matlin and Matthew Perry and Christian Slater, all these people that I was many of them I was actually friends with, and some I just wanted to call my friend, I don't really, who do I get starstruck? Oh, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Because there's one, Mel Brooks.
Oh, and you just saw him.
I
saw it on your Facebook.
We're dude. Oh, okay. That was one of the greatest nights of my life. And I beelined it for him. And I try to be very respectful of people. I was in London, and I'm telling you, my husband, my deceased husband, made it happen for me, because I was in London when my husband took his life on February 11th. So I was going back to London to kind of redo the memory, because I was so traumatized the last time I was there. So I went back. So I was on the plane. I was saying, Christian, please, if you can do, make this a memorable trip to London. Well, meeting and hanging out 2 nights in a row with Mel Brooks. I actually brought John Waters over to meet Mel Brooks. Okay? If that's not the coolest thing ever. I did a mitzvah. It was insane. And then Mel Brooks has an Instagram account. He put a picture, I guess someone did it for him, but it was our picture of us, me kissing him, and he put, "It's good to be the king." Do you know? And he says that tagline on History of the World. So yes, that was a perfect example of me losing my shit over somebody.
That's awesome. I feel your excitement right now.
And he is so amazing.
Yeah.
I actually want to reach out to him, and I want to take him to dinner. Yeah. Because first of all, he's so lucid. He was telling me stories about Anne Bancroft, stories of his start. It was one of the most amazing experiences, because I held him in such high regard, and to be able to exceed my expectations. He was so lovely. Yeah, he's wonderful.
Wanted to ask you about another one of someone you looked up to, and that's Oprah. I read that when you first had your show, you were just like, what would Oprah do?
Well, I was a guest on her show.
Before or after that?
Before. No, I was a guest for Hairspray. So Hairspray came out. Oh my God, cool. And they had me on, they did this thing called Dancing in the Movies. And I was 18, I was maybe 19. And so it was me, and it was the cast of Dirty Dancing. And I taught Oprah to do one of the dances from Hairspray. And I said on the air, I want to be the white Oprah. And they actually censored me. They actually, when you watched it, I don't know, I meant it as an ultimate compliment.
Yeah.
And it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Who knew? I never actually thought I could be a talk show host. But yeah, I did. I was a huge fan of hers. In a lot of ways, I think, she was relatable. Back then. I'm not talking about the Oprah then became she became telling everybody how to live their best life. And, I have a different persona. My thing is I don't have it figured out. I'm not going to tell anybody how to live their lives. I'm in it with you kind of thing. But I have a lot of respect for her. I think she's a great listener. She's beyond an icon and a legend. I have a lot of respect for her. Mm-hmm. I don't know her. I don't. You
do technically know her.
Technically, yeah. She'd know it's me.
Yeah. What was it like though for you when you're on the stage? On the Oprah show.
On Oprah, I was on Oprah's show twice. Wow. So I was on when I was 18, 19 years old, and I was on again when they did. It was legendary talk show hosts, and so this was not that long ago. This was when it was the last season of her show. So it was Phil Donahue, me, Montel, Geraldo, Sally Jesse. I think that was it. It it's like a pinch me moment. I mean, I definitely have a picture of me that, an outtake of like me like, holy shit, because it really does feel like it's like a fantasy, like that I'm living. Yeah, I mean, and I also can recognize like why our show was the phenomenon, what it was. It was this young, the concept. And I have to give credit to Garth Anseer, who was the executive that came up with the concept. He looked at the demographics of these shows, Phil Donahue, Oprah, and Sally Jesse, and they were all skewing over age of 50. So the idea was to take that genre and scale it down to a younger audience. And that was the concept. So the concept was finding a young woman to host the show. They picked me for whatever reason, and I happened to be really good at it. And in the beginning I would just channel Oprah. I literally be like, okay, what would she say? How would she act? And then eventually I would have my own voice. But again, back then in my 20s, I didn't really know who I was. It's only now.
Right. Well, yeah, we learn who we are every single
Life
day.
experience.
We're constantly growing. I watched a TEDx talk. I think that the guy's name was Julian Bagini, and he said who we are is a function of 4 different things. It is our beliefs, it's our desires, it's our memories, and it's our feelings. And all of those things are constantly evolving and changing.
Say it again. So what are they?
It's beliefs, desires, memories, and feelings.
So memories, trauma would fit into memories, right?
Sure.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so we're constantly experiencing new moments of our life that are shifting that formula of who we are. So I think that's it's just really, really fascinating. So Ricki, we've talked about some like super high moments. We've talked about some low moments. And since this show is all about being real, I wanted to ask you about some of those awkward, uncomfortable moments.
Okay.
So what is like a situation that you find it to be really challenging to be authentic? Because we all experience those as well. It's like, it's really easy to be authentic when the stakes are low and like when you're just like, just living or you're by yourself.
Yeah.
But like except for when it's not easy to be authentic.
I mean, I'm trying to, just recently I was at Esalen and I was at a workshop and I did not like the leader of the work. It's not that I didn't like him. I didn't like what he was doing. I didn't feel like he was really good. Yeah. So that was a moment like, where I'm just, you're trying to be polite. I mean, that's just the first thing that comes to mind. It was awkward and, I'm not good at being phony. Like, I'm really not. I mean, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings, but I'm not really, I don't really mince words and I don't really like being fake, That's not a really good example. That's not a juicy example of me feeling awkward.
I had one of those the other day, though.
You did?
I was at a dinner party and they were all excited about it. And like the food was like
not good.
I was like, I felt obligated to eat the whole plate of food,
right.
And that's not authentic. And like, I didn't really know what to say. So I just found myself lauding the things, like the heart that was put into it. Cause I could see that, but right. I didn't make any comments.
You were full of shit, basically.
It was one of those uncomfortable moments.
Yeah.
And the experience overall was great. The food, I was like, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm getting more discerning about my time and who I spend time with. Like, I'm having less and less of those awkward kinds of things because I won't subject myself to it, Yeah. I mean, I want to come up with like a juicy answer for you, but...
Well, if it comes to mind,
okay.
Certainly you can let me know.
Okay.
So one more question before we get into the truth challenge here. And I've got this 8-week program called Winning Weeks. It's essentially accountability for bringing your ideas and dreams to life and for being the best human you can be. So that could be doing something that's like facing a fear. It could be, calling up that business investor. It could be not sleeping with your cell phone. It could be, meditating 15 minutes a day or calling your grandma or whatever it may be. So my question for you is like, what would you say the criteria is for you to have a winning week where at the end of the week, you're like, I lived this week?
Oh, wow. I mean, definitely like taking good care of my body and mind and spirit, like putting good food in my body, exercising every day. I mean, that really does go a long way for me. Making good decisions in the cryptocurrency space, that's always feeling good for me. and connections with people. Like I really am into having like deep, real, new friendships, I mean, it's like being open to kind of what's coming in, and embracing like these new relationships. I'm in a phase of saying yes, to things that even that I don't know about or I'm uncomfortable about, it's like.
Is there a recent one where you're like, in the past, definitely would have said no to that, and I said yes?
Well, getting myself, this is not recent, but this was last year. I went to that festival in Corrales, Mexico with Brock Pierce and Crystal Rose.
I had Brock on the show earlier this summer.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
He's so amazing. I mean, they're amazing. Those unicorns are just incredible. But they literally kidnapped me and brought me down to that festival.
Wow.
And it was life-changing for me. It was my husband at the time. We had separated for the last time, and he was in a psychiatric hospital at that time. So, I mean, it was one of those moments. I barely knew Brock and Crystal. I did not know this place in Mexico. They described it, it was Sunday afternoon, and it was happening Thursday. I have children, I have a life, I'm a Virgo too, to have that, cause I'm like someone that plans things out. I'm pretty, like on top of it. So they said, what are you doing Thursday? And I was like, I don't know. They said, you need to come. We're kidnapping you. You need to come. I said, what is it? They said, oh, it's Ibiza meets Burning Man on a beach in Mexico.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, right? But it was a moment of like me not really knowing these people. I'm in a traumatic state because I'm going through a lot personally. And not knowing their motto is yes, please. I said yes. And I went and had this major, like transformative, life-changing experience in front of the Mayan Warrior, which I'd never seen before. I'd never been to Burning Man, with Sabo playing. And I basically, in front of that art car, I surrendered and let go of my beloved. And, it was a major thing that took place. So that was a perfect example of me stepping out of my comfort zone, trusting the universe, surrendering and benefiting, Yeah. Did I answer your question?
You did. Yeah, it was great. Yeah. All right, Ricki, it is time for the truth challenge.
Rusty. Okay.
So I've got 5 questions that I've come up with specifically for you. You're going to have just 30 seconds to answer each.
Okay.
And
Can
it's
I
your
plead
job.
the 5th?
Yeah, you can plead the 5th.
Okay.
You can. It's your job to answer them honestly and authentically.
Okay.
You accept the challenge?
I totally.
All right. The truth challenge with the one and only Ricki Lake. Question number 1 for you, Ricki. We'll start out with our giving confessions question. What is something that you're embarrassed to admit or maybe even ashamed to admit, but you'll share anyways because you could help somebody else feel less alone?
Oh my God. I don't know. Do I really have only 30 seconds? I can't think.
I'll let you think about it for a second.
I mean, I can't think of anything. Embarrassed to admit.
It could be like anything you're struggling with, or
yeah, let me think.
Any like unsupportive self-talk.
I mean, there's so much, but I'm trying to think of one.
Repeat the question. I bet you'll get her.
Okay.
What
is something that you are embarrassed to admit, or maybe even kind of a little bit ashamed of, but you'll share anyways today because it could potentially help somebody else feel less alone?
I mean, I'm not embarrassed to admit. I mean, there's days that I don't feel like getting out of bed. Like, as much as I seem like I have my shit together, and I do for the most part, I think I particularly this year struggle with, my day-to-day life sometimes. And I just, I'm not embarrassed to admit that, but it's just, it's real.
Question number 2 for you. This show is called The One and Only. There's 7 billion people, but only one of each of us. Mm-hmm. What makes you one of a kind? What makes you the one and only?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I have a lot of qualities to me that I think make me pretty unique. I definitely am someone who tries to make lemonade out of lemons and have been successful through much of my life and career. I don't know. I'm pretty solid. I'm solid with me as a friend, as a mother, as someone who's been successful. I've been able to reinvent myself. I've been able to kind of go against the grain. I think I'm the ultimate underdog. I think that's one of the reasons why I love the cryptocurrency space. I think I'm really drawn to these nerds that are really like, it's like the revenge of the nerds. So I don't know. I think that's a few reasons why I'm what makes me one in a billion.
Question number 3. Let's say you were to throw a reunion of 90s TV hosts.
Oh.
Who would you want to be at a table with, and what would you talk about?
Oh my God, I would love to talk to Phil Donahue. Oprah too. But I always get the sense I'm not going to get like to really talk to her. Like she's not going to be completely authentic. Something tells me, I don't know. Maybe that's not fair. But Phil Donahue, who was on the air for 26 years, back in the day, and did so much to advance humanity, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, she's just brilliant host. But I'd love to get his take on the state of the world right now. He's been pretty quiet, and I really admire him.
Like, I was interested to hear what you say. And notable people left off, Montel and Jerry Springer were not on that list.
Oh, I mean, I like...
You had 30 seconds.
I think Montel actually is really incredibly brave and outspoken. I have a lot of respect for him. And Jerry Springer, too. Jerry is super smart.
Yeah.
He was in politics, know. They all have their own place.
Yeah.
Even Sally Jesse. I like them all, Carney Wilson had a talk show back in the day.
What a club right there.
It is a funny club to have been a part of,
That's awesome.
And it's also, I'm so glad it's in my past, I'm so glad I'm not on The View or, And Rosie O'Donnell, she's a good friend of mine.
Question number 4 for you. What can we expect from you next?
That is a very good question. I don't know. I mean, I have a film that we just finished called Weed the People. It's about cannabis, and the focus is children and cancer. So that is really my husband's legacy. He is his spirit is on every frame of the film, and we dedicate it to him and to a little boy that died, AJ. So that's next, And again, that the whole sort of premise of the film is about informed choice, and we're making another film. Abby, my partner, and I are making another film about birth control, hormonal birth control, and that's our next one. So we're in production on that.
And question number 5, you got 30 seconds. What is your dream for the world?
I would love to live in a world where all of us are embraced and accepted for who we are, and obviously for no one to be suffering needlessly, for poverty to be eradicated, and disease, all of the above. I want my children to have clean air to breathe and clean water to drink and swim in. So I guess I want a lot.
That's a beautiful vision. The one and only Ricki Lake.
Thank you.
Love what you said. And you said something where you want to live in a world, or your dream is that we live in a world where everyone's accepted for who they are. Mm-hmm. Any idea how we can do that?
I mean, I think it starts with us, It's like, and me as a mother raising my young men to respect others, to love themselves. I mean, so much of it, I think, is about self-love, and which is so hard. It's so hard, especially when we grow up. I grew up with a mother who was extremely self-loathing and full of fear, and but yet against all odds, I think I have come to a place of certainly self-acceptance and for the most part self-love, and but I think I've come a long way.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I can certainly relate to that as well. And my evolution, I feel more secure in my own skin. I feel freer than I've ever felt. Mm-hmm. And there's moments every day where I'm not giving myself the self-love. Mm-hmm. So it really is that polarity that I'm constantly experiencing. And, every moment's a new moment. Yeah.
It's such a process. I mean, it's such an interesting, I try to step back and look at my life, sometimes, and it's like, I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't trade any of it, and even my loss, my husband taking his life, mm-hmm. I would sign up for tomorrow, knowing how it would end. If I could have what I had for those 6.5 years, where do I sign,
Your resilience and transparency, openness is so inspiring, Ricki. So let's wrap this show up. What can we do to support you?
Oh, I don't know. Thank you for offering. I don't know. I mean, I just, I guess just continuing to meet really inspiring people and sharing my story and feeling like I'm not alone in my grief and loss, that helps.
And Ricki, since this show is all about being real, I like to have conversations that aren't the normal conversations. So my question for you is, I'd love to hear just your internal narrative over the last hour during this experience, because, all day, every day, we're out and about being social. There's the external conversation and there's the internal conversation. And oftentimes the internal conversation isn't aired externally. So on the show, it's one of my favorite questions to ask at the end of the interview. What's been your internal dialogue? Yeah, this last hour.
It's like, what's he going to ask next? Is he going to go there? Ricki, wrap it up. You're too long-winded. It's mostly me judging myself, I guess.
I can relate to that as well. My internal dialogue is I feel honored to have this experience with you. Someone who I grew up watching on TV and having so much respect for. To have your trust to have you on the show means a lot to me.
Oh, thank you. So, it's really a pleasure. I mean, I really connected with you in that buzz that night.
The gratitude buzz.
I wasn't in the mind space. I wasn't in the same headspace as everyone, but I remember, when you saying what the crux of your show is, and that's what I'm all about. I mean, I really, really pride myself on being true to myself and being authentic with people, and I can't be any other way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So, if something isn't feeling like good for me, I remove myself. Look at this dog.
Yeah, Mama.
Speaking of keeping
Mama's
it real,
loving. Yeah, Mama's loving her mama. Yeah,
she's really medicine for me.
Yeah, dogs are so therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 4 most common regrets that people have on their deathbed, according to Bronnie Ware's famous memoir, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, is that people live the life that others expect of them versus fully going after their dreams. They spend way too much time working, don't allow themselves to fully express themselves, which stifles creativity, don't spend as much time as they'd like with the people that they love most and that inspire them. And then 5th, they don't allow themselves to be happier. And it's just a shame that those are the 5 most common regrets. And I mean, I've pretty much dedicated my life's work to supporting people today so they don't end up at the end of their life wishing that they had done it differently.
I don't think I'll ever be that person. I do feel like I am living a really pretty great life. I have done, I can't think of, I have very few regrets. I remember one regret that comes to mind is when I went and saw Hamilton, I did not go backstage.
That's a big one.
I went and saw that. I was performing the next night at Carnegie Hall with Alan Cumming. He's a very good friend of mine.
Wow,
he's amazing.
So talented.
He's such a beautiful man.
Yeah.
And so I was going to meet them, and I brought my friend Abby, my partner, to see Hamilton.
Yeah.
I got the best house seats. We were blown away. It was unfucking believable. And I get sometimes I can't say shy because I'm not shy, but I get to where, I don't want to bother them. Like that kind of feeling. It'll come up a little bit.
Right.
So I'm like, let's not bother them. We'll meet up with Alan. And I blew off going to meet Lin-Manuel Miranda and the cast, which that's my audience. Like, they would have loved me, to meet me, I think. And so I was like, damn, I'm kicking myself that I didn't go backstage.
It's funny the stories we tell ourselves to justify our fear.
In that moment, I was like, whereas this, it's funny, why I felt that then, but when I saw Mel Brooks, I beelined and tackled the guy,
You're supposed to meet him in that moment.
I was supposed to meet him, yeah.
I got to go back to the question when I asked you about your internal dialogue, and you're like, I wonder what he's going to ask me next, or if he's going to go there. So my question is, what is there? I don't know.
There
was nothing?
There's no, as you can tell, I'm an open book. There's not really anything I won't answer. I try to be respectful of my ex-husband or whatever.
You're super real. Is there a boundary as to what you would or what you wouldn't share publicly?
I share pretty much everything publicly, but having said that, I do not voice what I think a lot on social media anymore, because you're gonna piss off somebody. I just don't feel like it's worth the potential.
Just the energy, whatever.
I'm much more quiet than I used to be. Once Christian got ill, before he died, but when he got ill the first time with me, and then we got back together, and it was so hard to kind of explain to people. I became more private. It's funny. I was always considered myself to just, whatever, anybody can have access to me, which I, it's the paradox. It's the because
Yeah.
I look at the Kardashians and I get really irritated that they want certain parts of their lives to be private. Well, they're profiting on like them exposing themselves ad nauseum. That like you don't get to be private. I'm sorry, like but that yet I was a public figure. I was considered like a very open book and very very honest and authentic about my hardships and my successes. When Christian got ill, I saw a reason to kind of shut it down, because I couldn't. It wasn't my job to kind of share what I was going through. You know what I mean? So it's like, it goes back to like, I'm just really glad I'm not doing this as a day job anymore. I'm so glad those days I made the money, I made enough money. I don't have Oprah money or any of that. I have enough, and now there's crypto.
Amazing. Ricki, you are incredible. What final words of wisdom, inspiration do you have for listeners of the show?
I would start looking into blockchain and cryptocurrency.
There you have it.
I would, because it is the future. It is super exciting, and it is going to help the world at large, I believe. It is absolutely going to level the playing field. It's going to help the third world. People are going to, and it's very altruistic. I'm finding that world. They're all up for helping everyone, which is so rare when you think of a business, I think everybody wins, and so so that's something I think everyone should be getting educated on, and I'm still learning so much, but that's my one piece of advice.
The one and only Ricki Lake, and I was trying to think of a funny joke to end it with, and I started thinking about the musical Annie, and I'm like, what song do I sing? It's a hard knock life, or the sun will come out tomorrow. But,
That's
Ricki,
funny.
it's been such a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
So
Thank
much
you,
love.
Mark.